This is Special Report.
Black holes are one of the strangest things in existence.
Neil Armstrong may have seen extraterrestrials on the moon.
When he spies a discernible shape.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Welcome, everybody, to Full Spectrum Universe, the embattled broadcast from behind enemy lines in the once great state of New York. Are we ready for part 3? My name is Rob Yox. We have another incredible show, and we're going through the epilogues of what our universe is or was. You know, this information is vital, and one of the things that I heard somebody else say was share this information out. Hit that like button, share it, and leave a comment below to beat the algorithm. But share this information out, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to wake people up to the amenity that is galactical history and how vast it truly is. And we always live by a code, and the code is a man or woman who doesn't know where they come from is a man or woman lost. We all have ancestral heritage, and what I'm talking about this evening as we get into part 3 and what it means to really go through all of the different aspects of what our universe has gone through from its inception point to right now. And by the time we finish this series of different understandings of how the universe is, we're going to get this tremendously robust picture. But at the same time, we're going to know the lineage in which we are a part of and the greatness that comes along with it. And I think that it's paramount, especially today, in these days of such darkness that's out there. We have to remain in the light. And how do we do that? By empowering ourselves with information, by being able to traverse who we are and what we are, so that we can know thyself. And when we know thyself, nothing can influence us, nothing can beat us, nothing can stand in front of us that we can't tackle. So my mission with doing this type of work is to tell you that there are a lot of people who speculate on what has been done or what has happened before us. Now, while we can't confirm every last aspect of this, what I've done is I've taken a collection of works and found commonality in all of them. And when I do that, what I'm doing is giving you the understanding of what these people see, but at the same time seeing the common threads that bring it all together. And it kind of paints this picture. If you haven't watched 1 and 2, don't worry. Each individual part of this, it can be a standalone all its own, but we will reference a little bit of what happened before. So the first 2 episodes, we talked about the inception of the mother and the father, the unity consciousness breaking into 2, giving us the polarity that runs through the entire spectrum of our universe and everything and everything and anything. Then we got to the first 2 civilizations basically going to war. And while it was a dark time, this essentially scattered the Paa Tal, which is the 5th density race that resides between the 5th to 7th density, and they fluctuate between whichever they need, to essentially colonize all of the known universe that we see today. So we're going to pick up with the adversaries of that conflict, which was the Draco. And the Draco lead us to this place where we're actually getting to our quadrant of the universe. So when we're looking at this, we see that we're talking about Earth, we're talking about the moon, we're talking about our specific solar system as we get into this notion, right? So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming through. Please share this out again. Let's wake the world up together. Let's be the change and create the change we want to see. So let's dive right into this, right? So I'm going to add my slides to the stream. I'm going to take myself off so we can see what we look like. So the Draco fleet was always on the move, always expanding. They were ceaselessly searching for new planets to turn into vast farms and mining colonies so that they could feed their race and build and maintain ships, weapons, and all the rest of their enormous infrastructure. So we started at 13.96 billion years ago. So right now, moving forward as we would, we're at 365 million years ago. And using the denomination of Earth years, it's because it's what we go by. So to give us a better understanding of how vast through time, and time is a construct in itself, but how long of a period this took. So there are two Draco pilot brothers, and they're scouts, which is what we're looking at right there in the picture. It's a scout ship for the reptilian fleet. And they stumble across our very own Earth. Again, they're expanding. They're going out to all these different planets now. We've got the Lyrans, we've got the Sirens, we've got the Alpha Centaurans, we've got the the Blue Avians. So there's everything out there already. All of these planets out in the other side of the universe are all inhabited now. So basically, they determined that our Earth would be a very good candidate for a livestock planet. It had enough carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to be livable for their race. Although the Chaikar, which again is the Draconian royal family or royal bloodline, would do a few things later to pump these levels up. And it was basically in a rich primordial state where there was currently no competition or existing predators to prey on the livestock that they're putting together. So we go. There's the primordial soup that Earth was, and it becomes an incredible candidate. And as we see, there is a theme. Now, just to bring it back to me for a second, when we see science and spirituality coexist in the same, I don't want to say sentence, but in the same sector of thought, to me, that shows that there is a correlation that can be made, and it kind of gives a basis of maybe where science came from and spirituality, but there is a science to spirituality as well. So when I say science, I mean what we understand of planetary evolution and evolution within a species. That's where we start to see science kind of infiltrate a little bit of the narrative now. Now, whether that's intentional or not, that's up to the readers and the other people who really want to take a look at it. But like I said, I've done this as a collective, so I see this happening a lot in a lot of the different works. And when this whole thing is finished, we're going to put out all the sources. There's 65 of them. It's the most tremendous PDF you've ever seen. So, and you can all go and sift through all of it yourselves. But this is great minds and great people that I've taken this information from and finding the correlation. So let's get back to it. We've got Primordial Earth becomes a candidate for the Draco to go ahead and basically seed life a little bit, right? So there was one problem, though, and that problem was that the Earth had no tidal system. And if you know what a tidal system is, you know where I'm going with this. So something that is crucial for the rapid evolution of life in order to establish a tidal system, which would bring life out of the oceans and establish better conditions for flourishing land creatures. And also, it would make an excellent observation post. That's what the Chaikar imported, and placed in precise orbit a hollow planetoid that we know very well. So we see that this is, very similar to what we hear about possibly the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki kind of, in their orbit, bringing over the moon itself. And that's what they're talking about. So a tidal system is a scientific method in which our oceans flow. There are so many things that go into a tidal system that it's basically inherent on this planet to bring balance to life and things like that. So it's really wild to see this aspect of science kind of come into fruition when we're looking at galactical history. So we'll keep going. This is it's very, very much still a magma and rock kind of planet, and the oceans haven't cooled yet. There's a lot going on in this, and it's crucial that they have to have some sort of planetoid that creates the tidal system. So, you know, when we look at the modern science about the moon, it really doesn't show us the existence of what the moon truly is, right? And there are various theories in the mainstream now, all of which are fraught with holes, none of which can explain the strange things observed about the moon, and among other baffling aspects of what the moon represents. So we're going to touch on a few of them just so we understand a little bit of the mechanics. Now, again, let's bring it back to me, because some people don't believe in the round Earth model. And while I'm not saying this is a globe or a plane, which would mean a flat Earth, we're talking about the bodies outside of Earth and what they do to basically impact Earth on a different molecular level and on a ecological level. So let's go back. I just wanted to make that clear that we're not really, we're not really getting into it. So enter the moon. And again, we're going to take some information from what NASA says. And I just want to preface this right in the beginning. NASA stands for never a straight answer. And this is some of the stuff that they tell us about the moon. Now, whether NASA has been there or not, whether space travel was achieved or not, is all speculation, right? We've seen video, we've seen doctored video. NASA does a lot to pull the rug over people's eyes. So while we talk about this, we're going to go into some of the facts that, and this is air quotation fingers, that NASA kind of either insinuates or tells us is the mathematics and mechanics of how the moon works. So the moon is much lighter than it should be, given its size. Right? How they know that? It's crazy. The moon is much bigger than it should be, and with a diameter that is 27% the size of Earth, it's far, far bigger than any other observable planet satellite in our solar system. The biggest of which only 5% the size of its parent planet. That makes sense. So it's also, now we've got a little bit of dimension to it, and it's a little bit lighter. The mathematics of placement of the moon in relationship to the Earth and Sun are fantastically precise. It's placed in the exact perfect place to help sustain life through its influence on the tides, and the fact that it's perfect size to completely eclipse the sun is a mathematical impossibility unless you factor in intelligent design. So the fact that it eclipses the sun during lunar or physical solar eclipses, the fact that it does it so precisely is essentially damn near impossible. It's damn near impossible, but it does it. So that if it's doing that, it would show intelligent creation, right? And Jay Zen in the comments right now, yes, it says a holographical matrix of love and not consciousness. There are 3D density matrix within this planet. We're gonna go into that a little bit too, which is why it's just called space stations. Hence, now we're talking about the moon and 3D densities, right? So let's keep going. So its rotation is perfectly synchronized with the Earth, so that we only ever see one side of it, meaning it rotates on its axis once every 27.3 days, and also orbits Earth once every 27.3 days. Perfection. 27.3. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I bet if you look up 273 and kind of find the significance of those numbers, it's going to have a pretty crazy meaning or something, that kind of correlates. It appears to be hollow. Data indicates that the internal density is far less than the external density, and seismic equipment has shown clearly that upon it being impacted, the moon literally rings like a giant gong. This was first observed during the Apollo mission when the command module crashed into the moon and it has been tested repeatedly by NASA since then. One of the NASA scientists involved in these tests, Ken Johnson, had this to say: the moon not only rang like a bell, but the whole moon wobbled in such a precise way that it was almost as though it had a gigantic hydraulic dampener strut inside of it. Now, to me, I've heard this in numerous occasions. I've heard that the Russians also shot a missile at the moon. And when they did this, the moon rang in the sky 3 days straight because of the impact. 3 days straight. Also, when I looked into the Apollo 16 mission, and they also said that it had a sort of metallic ting to it when it crashed. Not only did they see it wobble, they felt and heard the vibration in such a way that is enough that he's commenting on it. You know, he's saying, well, this is pretty crazy. It's not supposed to be like this. So, you know, we see this, and I'm going fast forward a little bit because there's a lot more left. So underneath the accumulated dust on the surface, the moon is made largely out of metal. Countless pieces of evidence from independent astronomers and NASA scientists have shown that there are dense layers of metal beneath the surface, including pure iron and pure titanium, so pure that they could not have formed under natural conditions. Chromium and yttrium. Also, the floors of the craters of the moon are convex, not concave, as would be expected. These craters themselves are way too shallow for their width. This shallow crater with a convex floor would be the result of an asteroid blasting the dust surface, off a rigid metal sphere. Basically, it wasn't deep enough. The asteroid hit so hard and it dented it, but it didn't impact to go into it. It stopped. So then there are other craters which scientists have been unable to find the bottom of, which are believed to be entrances to the interior. Also, strange lights and objects have been recorded on our moon for thousands of years. The classical Greek philosopher, mathematician, and scientist Plato reported anomalous lights on the moon sometime around 400 BC. Also, in 1787, legendary astronomer Sir William Herschel recorded strange lights traveling across the dark lunar surface. Every single NASA mission to the moon has involved encounters with UFOs and observations of colossal artifacts and structures on the dark side, which have been covered up by NASA and the photographers airbrushed, by which the astronauts have come forward with first-person accounts of. So, all right, I'm going to stop there with the moon because there's so many more unexplained facts. And of course, all these mysteries are resolved by accepting the fact that the moon is an artificial construct metal object that was brought here from elsewhere, right? Brought here from elsewhere. So I want to, I want to stop there for a second and say there's so much that has been foreshadowed, but also when it comes to NASA, and the reason why I say never a straight answer is because everything has caveats. Well, this is that, but, and that's this, but nothing can be a straight answer. Everything is general. They've done a ton of different work with studios to portray certain things that have been happening that weren't happening at the time. Now, personally, and this is me personally, I'm going to tell you when I get to my own views, I do believe we made it to the moon. Flat Earth, not flat Earth, doesn't matter. I think we made it to the moon. I have a very good feeling that it wasn't recorded. And within the time it took us to get there, first, there were probably people on the mission who didn't make it back because of such things as the Kuiper Belt and the radiation pockets along the way that were where nobody knew about them. So when they got there, they met or encountered, they encountered beings, and those beings told them, don't ever come back. This is not for you. This is a way station for us to watch you. And I think that that's truly what the moon is, but that's just my personal opinion on some of the research I've done. And, you know, there's a comment in the chat that says, what deceiver is truthful? Here's what happens with these type of deceitful people. They sprinkle in elements of truth. So we have to look where we can corroborate specific areas of their explanations to find the truthful things, the points of truth. Now, do I think NASA's completely lying? No. Do I think that there's good people within NASA that says, that they're trying to do the right thing? I think so, but there's also a lot of people at the top of these agencies that are completely corrupted and have an agenda. We're not going to go into it here. That's more of a different platform to talk freely. We're working on that as well, so we can give our political exploits as well, like everybody else does. But let's get back to the moon itself, and you're probably saying to yourself, how does this have anything to do with galactical beginnings? I'm going to get there, but you got to follow me down this hole, because when we get to, this area of the universe right now is where it's happening during this time period. The other areas of the universe right now, it's, essentially building civilizations. They're building themselves and getting ready to be space worthy, or kind of getting out of their own solar system, So let's keep going. So the moon was the first base of operations for the Draco, and we're going to get there. By using the simplest answers is usually the truth, no matter how strange it may seem. This is what we call Occam's razor. Occam's razor is something that we use as people who are researchers to essentially try and find the most probable answer. Not saying that it's completely true. I think saying it's true is completely off base, but finding the most probable answer. So, like we just said, it was the first base of the Dracos, but here's the caveat to that as well. It's been conquered, reconquered, upgraded, repurposed many times since then by different races that had different interests in the system. So the moon that we see now has been altered. It has been changed ownership many, many times. So there are different areas in which, or different times in which the moon was used for different purposes. So we have to see it as that sort of unilateral object, but I truly believe it is a space station, and so does the work that we're following now. They believe it is a space station. So in our present time, the moon serves as a command center for this entire arm of the Milky Way, a demilitarized zone with many bases both on the surface and inside, which are inhabited by representatives from many different civilizations, even ones that have been enemies for eons. It also houses a computer system that broadcasts the artificial the third density matrix onto Earth, right? So now we're sitting here saying to ourselves, wait a minute, hold on. So we live in a 3D matrix. Now, is it plausible that the moon is what projects that 3D matrix? Not just our minds. Our minds are connected inherently to that matrix, but is it off base? Who knows? Who knows? But this is a similarity I'm seeing. The moon is just used for so much more than what we think it is. So now we're going to go over hundreds or 100 million years in the matter of, I don't know, 15 minutes. And I'm saying that, and I'm prefacing that because this is where things start to get a little bit more into the evolutionary camp, right? So we're going to be talking about the evolution of certain things. And rather than this being like, 5.5 hours, I'm going to sort of skim over a huge span of time, the next few 100 million years. So there were obviously countless dramas and wars and discoveries, rises and falls in consciousness, etc., during such a long time to span. So this next bit is painting with very broad strokes is, I guess, the best way to say it. So, thanks to the Draconian breeding programs in cooperation with the helpful forces of evolution, the first reptiles began to emerge on Earth. This is where, this is where we're taking in what we're looking at here. So now this is at the 300 million year mark, right? The first reptiles emerge on Earth. Now, these are not the reptiles that you think. This isn't essentially plain Darwin's evolution. There's a lot of off context things that happen, and we're going to go over it. So now, after about another 40 million years, the Earth's atmosphere is starting to have a higher percentage of oxygen. The Draco desire more oxygen as well. And their various breeding programs are beginning to spin out of control because of that rich environment. And the Earth is forcing evolution to support the propagating of many, many different species now. The Draco started it. It got out of control. Now there's a bunch of species that the scientists can't get a handle on. So the Draco scientists decided at that point that they were going to send an asteroid. The asteroid into the planet to bump up the CO2 levels in the atmosphere. And that would also wipe out the weaker species from the gene pool, leaving only the strongest, who will eventually evolve to dinosaurs. The strongest species survive. That's how everything works. The strong survive, the weak perish, right? So now, at 227 million years ago, the dinosaurs have arrived. Many aggressive species, meat eaters, and they're used for crossbreeding into dinoid soldiers and slaves, while vegetarians are left alone to evolve into larger and larger sources of protein. Remember, this is a farm to them. They are using this place to supply food and nutrients and proteins and vitamins and minerals and everything, metals, context. This is all, they're sucking the life out of Earth. They're sucking the planet dry for what it's worth, which is the Draco's modus operandum, right? Every time they go somewhere, they use everything up until there's no more. And then they move on, which is why they're an expanding, conquering species. So, the pesky rich plant life on Earth now is raising oxygen percentages to an uncomfortable level. So the Chayakar, again, the royal Draconian bloodline, hit Earth with yet another asteroid. And this is the one we all hear about that wiped out the dinosaurs. Various emerging mammalian species that are competing with the dinosaurs for resources. They're trying to wipe them out. They don't want them to have anything, anything that would resemble evolution, really. They're trying to control the evolutionary process, and they don't want these dinosaurs to keep growing the way that they are. But here's the thing, is these mammalian species that started to grow were planted by other extraterrestrial life. And we're going to get to that too, and it's towards the end of this presentation today. So, the rise of the dino soldiers, which is pretty cool, but there they go again. The Dracos send another asteroid. They want to destroy Earth. Not so much the Earth itself, but the uncontrollable mammalian species and the dinosaurs that they have there. So, aware of this persistent meddling and dedicated to nurturing all forms of life in the universe, and also because some of them were aware of the importance of the soul of Mother Earth, a branch of the Paa Tal, the ancient builder race, settled here and at this time built a base in the area which is now Antarctica, right? So we see that the Paa Tal are now here on Earth, and this is where things start to get a little bit more towards the aspects of human or mammal life, the evolution process of mammals, right? So basically in Antarctica, They're recently, right now, finding these runes and excavating them. And it's relatively recent. So we see that they've been finding these ancient pyramids in Antarctica. Now, is that the Paa Tal, or is it something way older? And you can look that up. I've been looking into it a little bit myself, and it's pretty wild to see what they're finding. And they're dribbling it out. You know how they use that effect? It's like dribble, 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 just so you don't get the whole boatload of information at once, because then you can put two and two together, or they'll compartmentalize the information and say, here's something that we found. It's a piece of copper. Here is a picture of a potential megalith underneath the ice, or they'll say something to you like, Antarctica wasn't in the same spot that it is now, which maybe it wasn't. But there is old style maps that show Antarctica with an immense amount of life, right? So we have to take all of this as like something like a grain of salt, right? But at the same time, if it resonates with you, try and figure out where it does and build off of that. And then what we do is we bring that information back to the community, and we all start to understand a little bit more of what truly happened out there, right? So let's keep going. We have the Paa Tal here. So, emerging of the early intergalactic civilization. There are many well-developed intergalactic civilizations in the universe at this point. And that's why we were skipping through, because these people were building those intergalactic civilizations. There's trading going on between the systems of Orion, Sirius, parts of Lyra, Draco, Vega, and the Pleiades. And many civilizations have started to check out their local star system as well, resulting in some skirmishes with the Draco force. And I know we're honing in on the Dracos right now. It's because they are truly the antagonists of the intergalactic system that we have here, right? And of the intergalactic civilizations, they're usually part of the opposition. Eventually, it's going to be more localized when we get into, Mars and Maldek, or the Orion Wars. I mean, we have so much more. Like I said, this is just the tip. This is the beginning of stuff, guys. This rabbit hole goes so deep. We could do 100 episodes on this. Hopefully we do 100 episodes. I don't know if we're gonna have that many, but it's gonna be a lot. So the early colonists in Lyra, who shunned technology and formed more primitive tribal societies, as well as the other races that had developed, unaware of their galactic neighbors, are generally left alone by the more advanced civilizations. For the most part, follow a policy of non-intervention. However, some of these worlds were taken over by reptilian factions who had no such scruples. They had no justice in them. So the population of these unfortunate worlds were enslaved and experimented on with genetic manipulation. Sorry, I can't say that word right now, but much like the situation on our own world, right? The Dracos were creating different types of, essentially, of life on this planet. So, it's really wild to see it happen. But all of this diversity and evolution, coupled with genetic manipulation programs of the Draconians, had resulted in a profusion of breeds and crossbreeds, a cornucopia of races in the universe: human, reptilian, canine, avian, feline, amphibious, and insectoid, and many, many more. Not to mention the various races that had evolved in their consciousness to this point, that they didn't use the physical body anymore and existed simply as a union of love and light, right? So it's getting crazy now. So most of the reptilian races and sub-races who are traveling through space live in or around Draco, Orion, and Sirius, though they have many, many colonies and farm worlds across the universe, including Earth. But that's where they mostly reside, right? So basically, we're going over a ton of time here, right? Most of the Dracos are still androgynous as well. Yet, because of the emergence of such credible genetic variation, some of the Draco subspecies have shown now to be sexed, male and female. Most are still self-serving and aggressive, but some have the DNA that have been altered enough to enable them to develop spirituality and are neutral or even benevolent, right? We know that now. The Alpha Draconis branch in particular have evolved quite a bit, and many have increased their vibration to the 5D state and joined in brotherhood with other 5D races. You know, for 200 million years ago to about 22 million years ago, our universe was in general a place of thriving development in culture, arts, trade, science, and spirituality. And a time span that vast, there were, of course, countless ups and downs, wars, atrocities, and struggles. But you could say that the overall trend was one of relative peace. Now, that was the entire presentation for tonight, but I stopped at the end to give myself a little bit of time to kind of go into it. Again, most of the Draconians that I understand are not of the benevolent type. There are factors, there are people who essentially look to them in a way it's crazy, but there is good and evil in everything. There's polarity in everything. So it's a choice. And I believe that there are some that are good, but I think that because of the stigma that the bad ones give, I truly think that they stay out of it because they know that they'll be perceived as either a threat or bad, right? So this has been a little bit of I guess, a timeline of our corner of the universe. And the reason why I kind of tackled this one first is because, first off, it's not going to take a full hour to explain it. And then we started a little bit late tonight at 8 o'clock. And two, because it's paramount to us. But in the grand scheme of everything, you know, it's not much. It's not much. Omar just put into the here, the first human root race, Hyperboreans, began at about 175 million years ago. That was, if we're following what we're talking about now, it would have been the Paa Tal, or the mammalians that they just talked about, that were basically there for the Draco to try and destroy them, but they survived. I'm sure that they've all seen, a ton of different atrocities in their time too. But the root races is wild, because when we're looking at these galactical timelines, we're sort of, I guess, I guess we're kind of looking at it as like in our time period, but we really don't know if these things could have existed outside of time and space, or if what we think as time right now would even hold up to what they were looking at as time. But Omar, what's up, brother? Great to see you here, man. And there's so much to go over, and this is just, again, the little cap of ice that we are, and our solar system. And the next part of this, we're going to get into the entities that sort of reside in our solar system, which came from other places. But and also, a lot of people, when we talk about we were talking about the moon for a little while, say, oh, but the Anunnaki this, the Anunnaki that. When I'm talking about this, the Anunnaki come later, right? So as of right this moment in time that I'm speaking about, the Anunnaki are not even a thought. They're not even a player. Whether they're a culture that hasn't reached intergalactical travel yet, or even outside of their planet, they could be there, but they're not the main players in the very, very beginning. Eventually, they go all in. And we're going to talk about that too. They go all in, and they become one of the most progenitive races out of all of them, especially when it comes to Earth, right? But this has been, Full Spectrum Universe tonight, guys. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming through. It's been an incredible 40 minutes. I told you this one might not be long. Some of these are going to be an hour, some won't. We're going to go over certain things, but I figured I would do a little bit more slide heavy on this time, because last time I was just sitting on slides and nobody was talking. But, while we still have the chat going on, tell me what you think in the chat, and we'll relay some of those messages. Also, leave a comment below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, it does a lot to help us. Subscribe. We've put our PayPal into the top of the chat. We pinned it. All donations are super appreciated. This is a completely listener-supported podcast. We don't ask for any sponsors, and if we do ever get sponsors, it's not going to be some crazy product. It's going to be stuff that we believe in, stuff that we ultimately use. And become a member to the channel if you want to support in that way. It's much appreciated. It goes towards all of it goes towards broadcasting and bringing you even more and more content. And that's my goal, is to become the archivist and truly just dive into the files and give it back to the people. And that's what I love doing, and that's what I'm doing here. So we've had quite a few guests that came through so far this last month, and I figured a couple of solo shows to get back to basics. Tomorrow night we have Caroline Corey coming through. We're going to be talking about our newest movie. We're going to be getting into spiritual healing. It's going to be really great. So yeah, everybody, I hope everybody enjoyed this, and then over the weekend we'll do another one. We may be teaming up with Anne-Marie Uber over the weekend and jumping over to her side of things. And we're definitely bringing more people into the community, and I love it because it gives us so many more different avenues to explore with each other and different perspectives, and it's truly amazing. So everybody out there, stay blessed, live life with love and abundance, and hopefully, you look towards the positive side of things. Love each other, love everything around you. Be so thankful that we're in these moments, because it's a very exciting time to be alive, and we're here for a reason. And if we stand on that, we're definitely going to make ourselves become, the change that we want to see. I love all of you, and I appreciate all of you. And this has just been an incredible journey down this. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep having a lot of fun doing it. So everybody put a smile on their face. And until next time, my name is Rob Yox. This is Full Spectrum Universe, Galactical Beginnings. Have a great evening.